I felt when I listened to your stories, I felt really connected because like so many things you experienced, like the awakening journey, and like personal awakening journey, and also the stories you talked about the pre-birth and stuff. I was like, I know that, yeah. And then I went
Yeah.
out of my body, and then I talked to my voice, and then I was given the second chance in this lifetimes, and then all that happened.
Oh.
So
Mm.
I was like, I know you, like
Yeah.
yes, I know I need to talk to you. But anyway, so this is your interview.
Okay.
This is your interview. So, Christian Sandberg, thank you for being here. And
You're
I
welcome.
really
Thank you for
appreciate of
having
your
me.
time. Yes. And I know that you remember your existence before coming to Earth. And then it is amazing and interesting story. So please start whatever you want to share from your heart.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm happy to share, but I do need to say as a disclaimer that words cannot possibly speak to this because our language is based in the world of form. It's based on the assumptions of our world, and our true nature transcends those assumptions entirely. So as soon as we put words on it, we're limiting it in a way that is inappropriate, actually. So it's very difficult to describe these experiences, but I'll give it a shot. Okay, so I had pre-birth memory up until the age of 6. And then I had no pre-birth memory for most of my early adult life. Like the memory left me around the age of 6. And it returned spontaneously at the age of 30. My body is 43 years old right now, so I've remembered again for about 13 years or so. But I didn't share for the first 8 years because I'm a working professional, and it's the kind of thing you just don't share, in working professional circles. But so for most of my adult life, I wasn't aware of this. But as I went through an awakening journey at the age of 30, I also began to have out-of-body experiences and other experiences. And so our higher nature has become very apparent, very normal, actually, for me. So I'll share my story, my pre-birth story. I just need to say again that it's just so hard to actually put words on it. Okay, so I remember long ago, before I had ever been physical, coming across a being who had been physical and feeling from this being the quality of his nature, the quality of his essence, who he was, who he is, how much joy and power he knew and was and could feel. And, because in those states of being, we're connected telepathically, so we can feel from each other who we are. And I asked him telepathically, like, my goodness, like, do you feel as much joy and freedom as I feel that you feel? And he said, yes. And he shared with me this depth of being. And I said, like, what could you possibly have done to become this? How did you come to this state of being? And he shared with me, among other things, that he had lived a physical lifetime, and one in particular in which he experienced a chronic health condition, some kind of pain that remained with him for a long period of time. And the way that he chose to meet that pain and that discomfort, the way that he allowed it and met the experience, allowed the certain deep refinement of who he is, who he was. It was like a refinement of his being. And I was just so inspired. I was like, I'm going to do that. I am going to do that. I am going to do that. Like, I was just so inspired. And he said to me something like, yeah, that's what they all say. You don't know how difficult it is. Like, not in a negative way, but it was just like, you don't understand. You just don't even understand what you're asking for yet. And I said, no, I'm serious. I want to do this. And he said, well, then go talk to your guides. But I remember that I lived many times, many physical lives, and I came back and found him later. And I shared that I was on the path, and he was encouraging, but I knew I wasn't all the way there yet. I was still working towards this. Okay, so the majority of my pre-birth memory is of a time somewhat immediately preceding this life, where I had taken a long break in between lives. And I remember being in this realm of golden light and just being full of happiness and joy and freedom and rest. And I remember this being coming to me, my guide, coming to me over and over and asking, "Are you ready to go back yet? Are you ready to go back yet?" And just putting him off, me like, "No, I'm not ready to go back yet." And then, "No, I'm not ready to go back yet." And it was like, it wasn't like he was pestering me. It was more like he was reminding me of my own intention, just trying to like nudge me back onto into consideration of my own intention. And finally I said, "Okay, I'm ready now." And then I remember reviewing with this guide, this vast, I don't know how to describe this, like reviewing my state, like everything that I had been and everything I knew, everything I was, everything I understood experientially, like qualities, like reviewing qualities, like maybe reviewing virtues or something. And it was really obvious the one thing that I needed to work on. Well, I don't want to say needed to, because there's nothing that we actually have to do. Nothing is truly required of us. We're totally free. But it was apparent, this one area that I was like, "Oh man, I really should work on that." And it was a very, very low vibration fear, a specific fear that had overcome me in a previous life. It had bested me. And in that previous life, because of the fear, I had become a very egoic monster, actually, and I had hurt many other people. And so that was a part of me now. So I could see, oh, wow, I should really, I should really work to integrate that and heal that. But I remember asking him, like, is it even possible? Because I sensed that the depth of this vibration, the vibrational distance of this fear was so extreme, such low vibration. I remember asking, has it ever been done? Like, is it even possible? Has any other being ever integrated a fear that is this low vibration in this specific way? And I remember the guide saying, yes, and you have all of time available to you to do so. There's no hurry. And then I just knew, like, if it can be done, I will do it. Like, I just had total confidence because I knew what I am and what we are. Like, I knew the great power and the joy and the immortality of our true nature. And so I was very excited to do that. And so they brought me a lifetime that was perfect for that intention, to meet this fear and to integrate this fear. And I remember reviewing that life in great detail. It wasn't this life, it was a life just before this one. I remember reviewing the life and knowing that it was a very accurate match, an appropriate match. And then I remember accepting the life, and I remember there being this moment to accept the veil. Okay, so the veil is just a word that we use to describe the limitations in consciousness space that we agree to wear, to take on to ourselves in order to have the physical experience. So the way that I experienced it, it was like a plummet in vibration from being very, very high vibration and very connected and knowing, having access to all knowledge, and plummeting down, 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 lower, 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 lower more, lower still, lower, 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 now lower more, lower, lower, lower. That was what it felt like to plummet down, down, down vibrationally into the state of being physical and being dense. It was like arriving to a place that had no heat and no air, and yet was simultaneously very, very dense. That was what it felt like. And so then I was there, but the limitation was so extreme, and I felt cut off from all that I am. And so after a very short amount of time, I was like, you know what? I am not doing this. There is no way. There is no freaking way that I'm going to tolerate a lifetime of this. So I summoned my strength, my might, and I smote the veil. I fought it. I punched my way back out. And I was successful in doing that. I returned to the other side, but I immediately became aware that I had killed the fetus that was to be my body. I'd killed the unborn body because I hadn't been born yet. I was for a very short time in a body in a womb. but that I caused that body to die. And so I had a life review, just like near-death experiencers describe. And I could see and feel and know how my fear had affected the mother, because now she had grief, but not only the mother, but hundreds of other people who would be negatively affected by the mother because of her grief that I had caused. And, you know, from that state of being, I could see all is well, it's okay. But I also could just see very objectively, like, oh man, I got a lot of fear. I got a lot of fear. I got to do something about this. So I spent some time then in between lives practicing surrendering to the veil in a place that I can only describe as like a veil acceptance simulator. It was like a simulation room. It was like being in a place with a dark pool, like a swimming pool that's dark, and they dunk you underwater, and then you get plummeted lower in vibration in the water, and then you have to kind of hold your breath and see how long you can endure it, and then you can cry uncle. You know, you can ask to be let out and they'll let you out if you want, you know, just to practice the act of surrender. And I can tell you the real thing is a lot more difficult than the simulator. But anyway, so I did that for a while, but I still had this intention. So then eventually they brought me this life as Christian. And this life was a pretty good match. It wasn't perfect. You know, like, I'm just making up numbers. It wasn't specifically like this, but it was like if the first one was 99% appropriate, this one was like 87 or something. Like, I don't know. It's just pretty good. But I could feel and see that it, you know, it wasn't quite as perfect as the first one would have been, but that it would work. And I remember reviewing, this is so hard to describe, but like millions and millions of possibilities of what this life might be like to be the human named Christian. It was like if you took a tree and laid it on its side and started at the trunk and then worked your way out to the branches, I could see all these possible paths that may or may not unfold in my life, depending on my choices and depending on the choices of everybody else in the play. And I could see and feel what it would be like to be me in those avenues. And I could see that it was very likely that in my 20s, a trauma would befall me and crush me. And it would give me the opportunity to re-experience the fear. And that did happen. When I was 22, physically what happened was I had a heat stroke in Chengdu, China. And I was in a hospital for 4 days, and they gave me bag after bag of potassium, and somehow it like burned my nervous system and caused this physical agony that I could not escape for months and months on end. It was incredibly difficult and traumatizing. So at the time that this happened in my human life, I of course had no memory of this. All I knew that I was in hell. I was suffering. But before life, I could see, even though that would be an extreme challenge, I could see the opportunity in it. That was so key. You know, I could see that this experience was actually like a gift. I know that sounds crazy to the human ego, but from the spiritual vantage point, I could see it was like somebody handing me a precious gift. In fact, being given the opportunity to be a human, to play a human, was like being given a winning lottery ticket. That's how rare and precious the opportunity felt to me. And I remember making certain requests of the life. Like, for instance, I knew that I wanted to be intelligent. I remember that I had been intelligent in recent lives, and I asked, can I do that? I don't really want to not be intelligent. And they said, yes, you can do that. I remember knowing that it would be important that I be male, just because there's certain differences in energy between male and female, and that would help me in this case. And I knew that my father would be really important, and my mother too, but that my father would instill confidence in me, and that confidence would give me like a rock to stand on so that I would have the strength to face the fear when it arose. And I also remember asking, can I have just a small amount of memory this time? Like, I don't want to forget every single thing. Can I just have a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of memory? And they said, yeah, you can do that, but it will make it even more difficult. And I could feel why. It was because the contrast between there and here is even more stark and painful. But see, I knew even that contrast, like all contrast, was an opportunity for growth, for personal growth and collective growth of being. So I accepted. So then I remember there having to be a moment to accept the whole life. I don't remember that moment, but I remember then being in this waiting area, and all of a sudden my guide coming to me and like grabbing me by the shoulders and like very suddenly shaking me like, go now, like right now. And the next thing is I was in this room that I can only describe as like a technician's shop or like an auto mechanic shop or something. I don't know how to describe it. And it was above the earth, and the earth was below me, and there was this shaft, this pit. And I was over top of it. And I remember these beings there that are very technical in nature, like mechanics or tinkerers, I think is a good word for how they feel. And they do this thing where they're able to match the veil to you, because the soul is very unique and has very rich specific qualities to it. And the life and the context of the life are very specific and unique. And they do this thing where they like, I don't know, they make it all jive somehow. And so they did that, they prepared that. And then I remember them asking me one last time, are you sure? Are you that you want to do this? And I knew that once I said yes here, I knew I was in for the ride. Like there's no getting out. It's like getting in a roller coaster. You know, once you get in, you have to stay in until the roller coaster's over. Like, you know, and I remember saying yes. And then feeling once again that huge plummet in vibration, lower, 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 down, 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 more, lower, 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 more, lower, lower, more, and then lower even more. I mean, it was just a ridiculous plummet in vibration down into this state of being separated, apparently, and having all my knowing cut off. And this time I just focused on not fighting it, because I remembered the last time, and I remembered my practice. And so I just surrendered to it. Like all I focused on is don't fight it, let it do whatever it will do to you, like surrender my control. And I remember actually feeling really accomplished, actually, because even making it to the physical is like a spiritual accomplishment because it's such a vibrationally different place. So then I was there for a while, and then eventually, once again, I was like, nope. No, I'm not doing this. There's no way. This is way too dark. This is way too separate. There is no way I'm going to tolerate this for a lifetime. So once again, I began to summon my strength to fight my way out. As I did that, the most holy and powerful moment of my life happened. I suddenly was expanded back out, and I felt all of the universe within me. And I felt the great spirit of God come to me. We call it God. It's beyond all language, source, the great I am of all things, came to me and showed me the whole universe, and I felt the churning of our sun in me, the churning bliss, this raging bliss of our sun in me. And God said to me, this is still what you are. You can never not be this. And it was so comforting, because it was like, oh, then I haven't lost all that I am. You know, that was what I was afraid of. I was afraid that I had lost everything. And that was what I was rejecting. But I saw, oh, I haven't lost everything. So I calmed down and settled back into being in the state of being in the body and not fighting. And then I remember being in the womb for a while, and just the simple existence of being in the womb. And then I remember the day I was born. I remember the sensory information, you know, the shock, the cold, the light. And I remember looking up at the nurses and being super curious about who these beings were that were like taking care of me, and feeling so much love for them, that they were there and that they were taking care of me. And I was so curious. I had no idea what was going on, like zero intellectual understanding. It was just craziness happening, you know, this room and the sight and the sound and the touch and everything. And it was all very extreme and confusing. And I just had this incredible curiosity, like, what is going on? And it's funny, because later in my life, when I shared this story with my father, he said that was what I looked like. He said my eyes were wide open, and I had the most intense curiosity on my face that he had ever seen on a baby before. So I don't have much memory right after that. But I remember as I got older, I assumed that certain, you know, like characteristics of the higher states of being, certain ways that things happened in the higher realms would be true here. For instance, I assumed we would be able to feel each other's emotions here, and I discovered that's not necessarily how it works on Earth. And I remember assuming that beings that were in positions of leadership or authority would be loving and wise. So, like, you know, if you were a teacher, you must be very loving and wise. Or if you were like the leader of a city, like a mayor, then you must be really loving and wise. And if you were the president of the United States, you must be like the most loving and wise and evolved person in the world, you know. I just assumed that's how it would be, because in the higher realms, love and wisdom is the power. And beings who are very loving and wise and evolved, I don't want to use the word, you know, like positions of authority, but they have roles that are like, you know, higher up roles that help others. So I assume that would be true here. And, you know, it took me a long time to discover that's not how it works on Earth. So I also used to kind of cheat a little bit. I remember as a kid drawing upon the flowchart memory and just to see what was going to happen. Like just to predict simple day-to-day things. And then that ability left me as I got older, especially by the age of about maybe 5 or 6. I had no ability to do that anymore. And then the memory left me completely by the age of 6 or so. So that's a quick summary. You know, I know that it sounds interesting. It's interesting to share, but I feel like what's more important for us to talk about and share with each other is who we really are. You know, what we really are, because we're not just these human characters that we're playing right now. We really are multidimensional beings having a human experience. We really are beings of love and freedom and joy. That is our true nature always. And no matter how dense and rigorous this physical context is, there's nothing to fear. And that is the most important message. I really hope we can share that with each other and remind each other.
Yes, I completely agree. And when you're talking about 5 or 6 years old, that the things gone from you, you know, that not abilities, but you know, like the sense that you're feeling and stuff, because ability is still within us. It's just, I think that is the brainwave state we're going through is shifting around that age. And then that times we change the awareness. So that I've lost quite a lot of senses, like kind of not lost, but you know, I disconnected around that time. And I was talking to the stars when I was 5 every night, because my life was pretty difficult since I was a child. So I didn't want to be there. I said to the stars and then dark skies, I said, take me, because I know that I don't belong here. So you can take me now. And then I was crying, and then I was just staring at the stars and talking to them. And when I grown up, I had a regression therapy, and then I started to really remember what was happening them. But you know, but there is another story behind it, but it's gonna be too long. So I just want to share with you that was a time that I was feeling the connection still, you know, 5 years old, 6 years old. And then I could predict things before it happened. And then my mom said, you know, you don't talk about it because people think you're crazy. I said, okay. And I could feel, I could feel the emotions of people, because I'm very empath and clairsentient, that I can feel the energy of people and things. So the grown up, they talk to me, and I could feel the disconnection between the words.
The disconnection.
Yeah. And I'm like, why are you telling me, but you're not feeling the same?
But your vibration is different, yeah.
Yeah. And then I was more connected to animals and the insect. I was playing with the snakes and then lizard and all these little beetles and then and you know, dogs and cats. And every time I was connected to those creatures, I felt so accepted. But when I got into the human world, I felt like I'm judged, you know, like everything who I was showing who I was and then enjoying my life. And then they said, no, don't do that. You shouldn't be like that. You know, don't say that. I'm like, oh my God, this is too difficult, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple mechanisms that facilitate that disconnection. It's not actually disconnection, but apparent disconnection. One is the physical biology itself, like you mentioned, brainwaves, but But an even more important one is that we associate into the form. So that is, our parents tell us something, we think about it and believe it. We're focused every day on being physical and eating and doing the things we have to do, beginning to have the thoughts. The more we identify with that, that is a separating action. The veil just permits it so that we don't have conscious, clear access to everything else. It doesn't actually separate you. It's just kind of a veil.
Yes.
And it's our focus into the physical that makes the veil seem so firm. If you let go of the focus on the physical and let go of the conditioned thoughts and actually be, like, really explore your consciousness, your being beneath all the thoughts, you'll find that connection still there. Yeah.
So we are put it into this human body, then experiencing the limitations, right? Then we forget almost everything.
Yes.
And therefore, I said awakening is not changing ourselves. It's just remembering who we are. We're just peeling off the onion layers and then just trying to find out who we are exactly, and then start to remember.
It's dropping what we're not. Awakening is dropping what we're not. And when you drop what you're not, then what you already were is still there. It never went anywhere.
Do you think it's a game of the divine or God or source, whatever you can call, and it is experiencing this game, this virtual world, putting the noun after I am and identifying, who we can be or what we are, and then like just to play this game.
Yes, it is like a big game. And so what's the purpose of the game? The purpose of the game is the evolution of consciousness, which is synonymous with the expansion of love and joy through the integration of experience and through getting to make choices. And so choice making so those are the two things. Integrating experience, that means really like processing what we're experiencing, processing being a man or a woman, processing being whatever you're being. That's the first thing. And the other thing is like making choices comes from a place, and that place is intention, quality of intention. So that's the other really, really important thing that we're here exploring is the quality of our intention. And what I mean by that is, are we making choices that are in alignment with love or in alignment with fear? Now, fear only can be experienced in the illusion of separation, because fear only occurs as you buy into a perception that is not in alignment with the truth. So like if you perceive, I am powerless or I have no freedom. Yeah, that can prompt fear. And when I say you perceive that, I mean something in your life may make you feel that way. It doesn't actually make you feel that way. It's that it prompts that perception, and that perception is not in alignment with the truth. And then we experience fear. And then we don't like that because that's not in alignment with the truth of who we really are. So when we wield intention then that arises out of fear, that we call that egoic intention, ego. So that's like, oh, well, I feel powerless. So now I'm going to get some power because now that, look, I'll believe this over here. Now I feel better. Or I'll be a part of this group, and this group's better than this group. So now I feel better. All the games that we play within ourselves, that's all ego. And that ego is just, all it is the part of us that's trying to fix the fear problem. So anyway, that was a long comment, but I'm just saying that exploring how we can actually wield an intention aligned with love rather than fear is one of the main names of the game of what we're doing here. When you're under this extreme limitation, can you still choose love? Can you still choose kindness, compassion? Can you love yourself? Can you find the beauty of life even in the difficulty? That's powerful stuff. And the greater the limitation, the greater than the opportunity, you see.
That is true. When you are feeling fear in the other realm, not here with the physical body, is that a same sort of feeling? it's a vibration anyway. Emotion is emotion, which is energy motion. The motion is the movement of the energy. So it is the vibration. But do you feel the same thing?
When we say the other side, it's not just one state. You know, it's many, 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 many different reality systems that all have their own rules. Fear can only be experienced in a system where you can buy into a perception that is not the truth. So when you truly know who you are, you can't know fear. There's no way. Because in the truth of who you are, there's nothing to fear. You are an immortal being of total love, total joy, total freedom. There's no fear. There's nothing more powerful than you in that way.
Yes.
So if you're in a system where you're experiencing fear, that just means there's some kind of perception or association with form that is, prompting fear. So for instance, if you're in an astral layer and you are considering a fear-based thought, their environment might reflect that back to you. But in this case, if you're a human personality doing that, that's an idea you learned on Earth, and it's an idea that has a meaning you associated with it that's not in alignment with the truth. And now we're seeing what we can do with that in a thought-responsive reality rather than here. The reason I qualify that is I'm very careful to ever say that you can experience fear in higher realms. It is possible to experience fear in any realm where you are associated into limitation and form. But fear is just synonymous with yet unevolvedness. It just means there's some form that you haven't processed all the way yet. And the true masters that come to Earth, even if they have really hard times, they don't experience the fear because they can come to terms with and really process even the depths of this limitation with joy and with love. It's amazing.
So when you are in an astral world or whatever, that before you come into this earth, you experience things like, practicing getting over the fear, you just train there. It sounds like you don't have a physical body, but you have a like astral body or, something like that happening. So a lot of people describe the school on the other side. That have you ever experienced something there?
I know what you're talking about, the schooling areas of the realm above this one. I don't try to use words to label the realms too much. But I'm aware of those schools. I have some memories there. In fact, I think we even visit there every once in a while. The reason I say that is I remember one time, I don't know if you want to go down this tangent, but I remember one time while my body was asleep, I was in a non-physical experience where I went to a place so I have a friend here in this life who happens to not be focused on the spiritual, which is totally fine. But yet he was there with me. And in this life, this friend of mine, in high school, at one point, there was a girl that I liked. And this friend went and got with that girl just to upset me. Because sometimes that's what ego does. So anyway, we were in this experience where he and I were in this room so this room looked like black granite walls, very sterile, cold environment. And it was full of many beings, students, you could say, who were, I don't like the word younger souls, I don't like that word, but just souls who had had less physical experience so far. And they had not yet engaged the rigors of the physical all the way. And the reason the two of us were visiting this classroom is that we came to share a simple example of how in this world, we don't have many friends, in the physical usually. And he and I remain friends to this day. And, in each other's lives, we're one of the few friends that we have, right? But we shared that even though we're friends, this is an example of how even good friends can treat each other on Earth. And we saw this example of how this guy hurt my feelings on purpose by pursuing this girl that I liked in high school. And the students were like, whoa, that's like, it's so mind blowing. A friend would hurt another friend, like it's so foreign to those higher realms where love is the reigning power, you know, like, what do you mean friends would hurt each other? That's totally ludicrous. But I remember like coming and almost like a show and tell. And we did that while we were physical here. Anyway, so I just thought I'd share that because it's kind of a simple example of visiting the schools, you know, while we're in the simulation. And because we're in it, being able to arrive, we still carry with us the energy of this place, this lower vibration. And so that's valuable. You know?
Yeah. Because we don't sleep, actually.
Consciousness doesn't.
Consciousness doesn't. So I know that I go somewhere and then always experiencing things, and I receive messages, and then it's happened next day and stuff like this. Always it's continuously happening. So I know that we don't actually sleep. This physical body needs to take a rest.
I think another reason for the sleep is not only I think the biology evolved because consciousness is operating through it. And it's a lot to focus into the physical for a day.
What do you think about destiny and free will?
Yeah. So free will is first. Free will is always a real thing. So in my pre-birth plan, when I reviewed the flow chart of all the millions of things that might happen in this life, I could see that the certain avenues were very, very likely to happen. Like, it was extremely likely. I wouldn't put a number on it, okay? But if I had to put a number, like 99% likely that I was going to suffer a trauma in my 20s, because I knew the biology of this body had certain missing, like there were genetic imperfections, and that those would cause this day-to-day experience to be very difficult for my body. And it would lead to a chemical crash in my 20s. Anyway, so I could see that was very likely, but free will always functions. It just has to operate within the context it's given. And then within the context, free will is always nudging. Like, our intention is always nudging how the physical unfolds. This is not a firm, objective, material place like it appears. It's not. It's a probabilistic reality. It's a probabilistic simulation, actually. Now, certain things may be 99.999% likely to happen. You know, like if you drop a ball, it's going to follow the rules of gravity and hit the ground. That's just part of the simulation's rule set. However, consciousness is always nudging, always causing the probabilities to shift, which to us in ways that might seem subtle. Where there is more uncertainty in how something might unfold, there's more room for nudge. Where there's less uncertainty, there's much less room for nudging. So if something's already been seen, touched, formed, like if I pick up, like I have a crystal here, you know, this thing that's going to stay this way till tomorrow. You know, that's just how it works in the physical. I'm just saying that there are rules that consciousness works within, and free will is always operating in those rules, but part of those rules include malleability. So free will is first. It's just that pre-life and at any moment during the life, the system is really, really good at predicting outcome. Because it has all the data, as Tom Campbell, the physicist and consciousness explorer, would say. It has all the information. So it can crunch out the likely outcomes every unit time, you know, billions of times a second. It knows what is the likely outcome now and what about now. And then you might make a choice, which was unlikely. It's free will. You can choose whatever you want. You could jump out that window right now. You have all free will to choose whatever you like. And then the system has to recalculate. Now, it knows us really well, and it knows all the information really well. So it's very accurate, but it's not 100% certain. Now, if we build something into a pre-life plan, it's highly likely that the nudging will come not only from us, but from potentially other sources. It's likely that there will be nudging to support that event unfolding. So if I came to experience a certain fear, it's very likely I'll be giving the opportunity to face that fear. Not 100% certain, but very, very likely. And so all of us have certain things that are more or less likely, but we always have free will.
I ask this question because, some people wants to be healed. They planned to die with that disease. Then even they wish to be healed, their programming is like they need to carry that disease and then, move on.
Sometimes that's the case, but it's very complex and not easily summarized. In many cases, disease can be healed.
Yes.
If we get over our own crap.
Yeah.
If we process our own fear.
Yeah.
Then life can open back up and we can heal from incredible things. Like we may even say miraculous healing.
When people just tuning into that kind of like vibration and that moment, I don't know how to describe it. As you said, the word is really limited, When I give session to my clients, when they finished the session and then some of the people are healed completely, even it's a physical, even that's mental. And I'm like, wow, but
yeah.
I know why they are healed. Kind of they tapping into that point. It's like they are ready. They committed, their energy was much to that healing process. And then boom, that the tumor from the throat was just disappeared in front of my eyes. Yeah. And the arthritis, like couldn't move the hand, was just doing like that. And so many things I've seen in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
But sometimes I explain to people that it is kind of like we are going through, I don't want to call it lesson, I just want to call it experience. But, we need to experience things and there are some subject we need to overcome, It's like unconditional love or acceptance, forgiveness, and all that. And we choose one of those subject in this lifetime, not only one, but several altogether. But when you cannot be healed or something doesn't go as you planned, it could be your experience you are having with acceptance, forgiveness, letting go, surrender, or have faith. I don't know. It's like you're going through with this experience. So once they understood, and then boom, reality shift as well. It's like a quantum jumping into the different reality that they move into the reality that they are healed.
Yeah.
So they could be maybe existing in other reality that they are still, having a disease or sickness. So I am believing that everything is existed here or existing spontaneously. And we are just tapping into different kind of scenario, according to our vibration, decision, and, like intentions. What do you think about it?
So Tom Campbell has a good model for this. He talks about the trillions and trillions of possible, unactualized paths for a universe, and how there's an actualized path that weaves through it, but all the rest of the unactualized paths remain in the database for study. So we can access, well, what if I didn't get rid of my tumor? What would have life been like? And you can go see. But the one that was actualized is that you actually shifted your intention and got in touch with your power and healed the tumor. I'm reminded of the near-death experiencer, Anita Moorjani. She wrote the book, Dying to Be Me. And I won't spoil it, but I'll just say that she had tumors all throughout her body. And she died, and she had a near-death experience. And on the other side, she realized her own fear had led to the tumors. And when she processed the fear, even on that side, when she came back to the body, she knew her body would heal, and it did. She healed from tumors all throughout her body within a short period of time. And so, we think that's miraculous, but the power of life is incredible. There's nothing more powerful. There's nothing more powerful than life itself with a capital L. Fear is like, you could say fear is like a blocker, like blocking the river. And then the water gets trapped behind the block. Well, facing your fear and actually processing your own crap is like removing the block.
Yes. Did you overcome your fear?
I have processed an incredible depth of this fear. I don't like to be super categorical about it because it's it's complex. But I have, yes, faced and integrated and healed a huge amount of the fear that I came to process in this life. I feel like if I were to pass right now, it would be okay. It would, like I have done what I came to do. I think it's too big to do in one lifetime all the way, actually, because each given life has a certain trajectory, and I'm headed in a certain direction. But that's okay. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's all an opportunity. If you acknowledge to yourself, I'm a fearful mess. I'm terrified of everything. Recognize that in yourself. That is growth. Leaving the security of the ego and actually owning your own pain and owning your own terror, and be like, wow, when I was 5, I was treated a certain way, or I was abused, and I locked that away, and I hate myself for it, or whatever. Go explore the shame. There's a story I've shared before, which is very simple, but I think it's really apt. When my father was a child, he was afraid of his closet when he would go to sleep, the closet in his room. And every night he would lay there and look at his closet, and he was like, oh my gosh, there's monsters in the closet. They're going to get me. I can't sleep. And he was so afraid. And I mean, it's funny to us, but it was real to him. He was terrified. And after laying there for months, one day he's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going into that closet. And if those monsters eat me, so be it. I'm sick of being afraid. And he charged into that closet, and he pushed his way through the clothes, and he sat on the floor in his closet, and he expected the monsters would eat him. But no monsters ate him. And it occurred to him, there are no monsters. And now, as an adult, my father is not afraid of closets anymore. So I know that sounds silly a little, but our fear is like that. Maybe difference in scope, right? Maybe difference maybe difference in sensation or severity. But if you go into the closet and like willing for the monster to eat you, you will find there's no monster. And you're empowered because now you wielded a quality of intention. See, it's all about that intention. You wielded the intention of not giving into the fear anymore, but going and actually feeling all the pain, all the negative. Go face it all. That's healing. That's so powerful. Oh my gosh, it's so powerful.
Every single things we see, we don't see, it exists in this universe is ourselves, you know?
Yes.
So what we afraid of is ourselves. Everything.
Yes, that's right. It reminds me of a question somebody asked Tom Campbell once. Well, what if I go out of body and see a demon? And he said something like, give it a hug. The idea is that the quality of intention is what matters, love rather than fear. You see, I'm just saying that even those circumstances that once caused us so much fear, they're an opportunity. They're an opportunity for you to respond differently, to see it differently, to allow it. Like, see, this is so important. Nothing in the world is your enemy.
Yes.
You don't have any enemies. This is a mind-blowing concept, because we live in a world where we are trained to identify enemies all over. My country versus your country, my company versus your company, my family versus your family, my football team versus your football team, whatever. And, these problems, they're caused by those people over there, and these problems are caused by those people over there, and it's their fault. And no. There are no true enemies. They could be rigorous. They could be strong. They could be really intense. But they're neutral. They're all neutral. Every circumstance is neutral. It can't have a meaning unless you assign the meaning.
That's exactly what I said to my husband. He hit himself by the wall, and then he said, ow, this wall. And I said, no, wall didn't move. You moved around and you hit yourself. You apologize to the wall. He hurting himself, but in his mind, it's like this wall attacked me.
Yes. It's amazing how many people do that with very many things. I know some people who have some conservative beliefs that see enemies in so many things, and I want to say you're hurting yourself. It's like hitting the wall. It's like all you're doing is hitting the wall and saying, oh, that wall. Well, now you have two problems. Now, one, you hurt your hand, and now two, now you have an enemy in the wall that you made. You don't need that. We don't need to do that. And then ironically, of course, when we make an enemy of the wall, we usually end up hurting each other.
Yes.
Because each other are who we think are the enemy. We have no enemies. Life is on your side. So the human race is going through an awakening process. The collective consciousness of humanity is currently increasing its vibration. There's a lot of friction because there are thousands of years of fear-based thought patterns that we are working through. And so with that amount of friction, there could be some tumultuous events, potentially, I don't know. But I do know that we have a lot of help from the other side, and that in the end, love always wins and we can't truly fail. I do feel that it's likely the human race will succeed in fully awakening over the long term. And I think it's a hopeful prognosis. I don't think there's any need to be, surrendering to hopelessness. That's not a thing. But it's really important that each person recognize their own value and how important their own walk is. Like, if you meet your own fear today, even a little bit, you are helping the entire collective consciousness of humanity to evolve. Like, I know you may feel powerless, but if you're like in your bedroom and you process something that came up for you, you're helping. You're doing it. The whole, it's like the collective consciousness is like a pond in the ocean. And it's like we can all see the light from each other, even though we don't visually see it. In consciousness space, we all feel it and see it. Like, it's like the temperature of the water changes. So when you meet your crap and when you choose joy in your life, you're actually helping the whole pond to raise temperature. And one awakened person is disproportionately powerful, has a disproportionately positive impact on the world. So it's not hopeless. It's very, very hopeful.
What is life for you?
Life itself is beyond all description. So that we could use the synonymous terms beingness or spirit or consciousness itself. And it is the thing that exists. It's the bedrock that truly is. And it is made of love and joy and freedom and creativity and power. And then life in the physical sense is an experience of form happening within the first one. An experience of form that is happening where we're using duality as a creative tool for the expansion of love and joy. And through the integration of experience and through choice making. So life is an opportunity. It's like a big playground. You could say it's like you could call it a classroom, but I think it's more important to know that the classroom is in a playground.
Yes,
it's a part of a playground. And what are you learning? All sorts of things. How to integrate experience, how to tolerate, how to make different choices, how to put new meaning on your life. Like, here's where the meaning gets super deep. Super deep. Can you choose to put a new meaning on it? You are consciousness. You are the author. You can choose. So we are here to explore all of that. And this life in the physical is the opportunity to do that. And that's an incredibly additive and beautiful process.